goal, but the build-up, the creation, the salad by Tristan Borges.
Brilliant.
That's it. It's Borges. It's gorgeous. That was a thing of beauty. He put Dan Klump on toast. A very good defender. That moment alone, worthy of a match winner.
What did you make of this one?
You see Chenier throughout the season has been class. He's spicy today, man. Honestly, he's the guy for me. He's going to be the difference going into this finals. But you see, he played with confidence. And what I love to see is that you see a player who cared. He wanted his team to be in the finals today. Getting the goal, we can argue later. I know you're the tree hugger for the keepers, if it's savable or not. But regardless, he hits it. He hits it with venom. And you can see on the second goal as well, his little dancing, little step-overs. Confidence. He played like a big boy today, for sure.
All right, we're going to break this one down. Forge 2-1. They beat Cavalry. Andy, Jordan, Gareth, and Ollie here in studio as we head to Tim Hortons Field. That's where Christian Jack is. And KJ, 4 straight North Star Shield finals. It's never featured the same 2 opponents, but it's definitely featured one opponent all 4 years, and that is Forge. What do you just make of the run that they've had? This was the year we thought they were beatable, but yet here they are in the final once again.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable. You know, I cannot help but stand here right now and think, you know, there's a lot of things, trust me, going on around me here, very highly emotional and volatile moments. But you're right. You know, this is a special Canadian soccer story, let alone a story here, but born in Hamilton, Ontario. You know, this is a club that has been going on for 4 years. They played 32 of these games in 4 years. It's more than any professional club in Canada. Knockout games like this, CONCACAF, CPL playoffs, Canadian Championship. And they got players there who get things done. Do you know what I mean? When you think about it today, and you look over my shoulder, what's happening in a special moment with supporters shield, with the supporters over there. You know, Chenier today was marvelous. You know, the way that he scored that goal and the way he wrapped his foot around that ball to beat a very good goalkeeper in Carducci from that angle was really the big moment in the game. And then, of course, Borges against Klump as well. 2 players that have been here since 2019. Again, were the key difference makers here tonight.
Well, KJ, you ended up using a word there, volatile. We know the 2 teams don't like each other, but what's the atmosphere like there right now? Obviously, we see the Forge team celebrating with their supporters, but any tension when that final whistle went?
Yeah, lots of tension around the Cavalry players towards the officials. You know, there's big moments in the game, no? I mean, Kyle Becker got sent off in this game, and then you're 11 versus 10, and it doesn't last long enough to get that momentum if you're Cavalry, and they'll be looking back at that, whether you think it's a second yellow card or not. That's an enormous missed opportunity for them. You don't get Forge on the ropes very often, and when you've got them on the ropes, you've got to take advantage of that, and they didn't. They weren't able to keep 11 men on the pitch, regardless who you want to blame for that. So there's a lot of emotion. This is just an absolutely crushing day for Cavalry. A crushing day. This is a monumental match, and they've not got it done again. And it doesn't matter whether we can talk about how great Forge are, and by the way, they're celebrating across from here as if they've won something. They don't do that very often when they've not won something. So mark my words, this is a big moment for them. They knew that this was an enormous hurdle to get over, and they've got over it. That speaks a lot about the opponents, but it's a crushing, I'll use the word again, a crushing loss for the boys from Calgary who have to get home again, knowing they just didn't get there enough to get to the final and go out there and try and win.
The night does belong to Forge. We're going to be talking a lot about them here. But the other storyline, of course, was Cavalry, as you mentioned, perennial contenders who don't have a trophy case with the North Star Shield. What does this offseason look for them? Because we can always say, coulda, shoulda, woulda, but what does the offseason look like?
Well, I think they'll be very disappointed in terms of the way they lost the momentum in the second half of the season. They had a lot of bulk of home games, and you know, look, there's a bounce of a ball here or there. They could have been hosting this second leg, and I think it proved really important. You know, if they'd have hosted this second leg and the game would have been tied in the first leg, it's a lot of ifs and buts and maybes, but I think that would have been a big advantage for them. In the end, they had to come here after not winning at home, and it became a big hurdle for them. So they've got to find more consistency. Again, you know, down to 10 men, they couldn't ignite the offense. I thought they were really brave. The way they played out the back and attracted the press, they had a game plan, they stuck to it. But in the end, they just didn't have enough difference makers on the pitch. Borges wins a penalty, Chenier scores a brilliant goal, and that's the difference makers that are on the pitch tonight.
KJ, appreciate you taking the time. Go and enjoy that atmosphere as we continue to break this one down. Forge defeating Cavalry 2-1. You heard what he said there about the Cavs players immediately going to the referee. Would that be something you would do if you were on Cavalry?
I mean, after after a game like that, you just have to live with what happens. Obviously, that's easier said than done, but I'm not going to a ref after a game, after he's made such a big decision. Also, it happened so long ago. It's one of those things where if I see the ref later on in the year or next season, we'll have a chat about it, but there's nothing you can do at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of ifs and buts and shoulda, coulda, wouldas, you know, like I said, but if you're taking this back home right now, you know, if you're Cavalry, Ollie, and like I said before, what does this offseason look like? Because they've always managed to take it to the line, but just not be the first ones to cross it.
Yeah, what they lack is what KJ touched on there. They don't have a Tristan Borges. They don't have a David Chouanier. Moussi at times stepped up to be that player, but I don't think he's as consistent. That is the same story as 2019. They just do not seem to really find the difference makers in the final thirds that Forge have always had on their roster. That, for me, is the biggest thing that's still preventing them from being a team that always punches their ticket and is always there and is very consistent in the regular season to being a team that can win playoff games. Is those players who can win you matches at the biggest time of year. I still think they've struggled to recruit them. And that, I think, has got to be the biggest focus for Tommy Wheeldon Jr.
But in fairness, who in the Canadian Premier League has the attacking options that Forge has?
But that's who you're competing with, right? That's the competition.
There's one team that's loaded in terms of attacking options. Everyone else struggles to piece that together. And so that's Forge. That's their advantage. We've said it all season long. They are the best squad in the Canadian Premier League. But are they the best team? Today, they were the better team. Let's give them credit, despite all the controversy around this. But this one, for me, if I'm a Cavalry supporter, if I'm Tommy Wheeldon Jr., if I'm those players like Mason Trafford who have been there since day one, this one hurts the most. And it's always across the touchline. It's insane. 2019, it was Nanko on the same touchline, a little bit further that way. Was the ball in or out?
Really, yeah.
The ball in or out at ATCO Field last season. But that one you can put blame on the players because they didn't play to the whistle. So that was a learning moment. Here, David Norman Jr. is protecting himself on the touchline, right on the line. He's actually not even on the field, and it's a ridiculous sending off that evened things up, taking away what could have been a critical advantage. That stings. We're not going to hear the end of this, but it may be the fourth season that they haven't made the finals, or they haven't come away with the North Star Shield, but this one I think hurts the most.
Well, Forge is feeling pretty good because they're going to their fourth straight CPL final. Bobby Smyrniotis joining me now. The final whistle went, Bobby. How are you feeling after that one?
Feeling good. It was a great night in Hamilton. It was fantastic atmosphere here in front of our fans who, you know, pushed us forward. You know, it was quite a interesting match, as I think you guys probably have already talked about, and we're happy to come out with a win and heading to Ottawa next week.
How did you feel after Kyle Becker got the straight red?
Yeah, it was strange because there's no intent in the play, you know. So obviously it's a foul. I think it's a yellow card, but Kyle doesn't see Adekube coming, and you know, up to that point the ref was letting things go. There weren't many yellow cards that we usually seen in the season, so it's quite strange to see that, and that kind of changed a little bit of the game as well. I thought we were excellent up to that point. But credit to the guys, we stuck into it. Interesting situation again in the second half of both teams playing with 10 men. But once again, David Chouanier comes up big in a big game.
He comes up big. Woobens ends up getting another goal. He scored in the first leg. And the big talk, of course, was Forge had lost the offense down the stretch here. So you score one goal that was a crucial tying goal, leg one. You end up scoring 2 goals here. And there was a lot of talk of if ever you're going to beat Forge, this is the time to do it. So what was your message to your team to pull off the win here today?
I think just being the best version of ourselves, and when we're the best version of ourselves, we're attacking, we're free-flowing, we're playing excellent football. I think we showed that for majority of the game, especially in the first half. And we know good things come. You know, you can stop us here and there, but for the most part, the goals are going to come. You know, I'm confident in this group, and they're confident in themselves. And not only can we do it in the attack, but we've done an excellent job defending. And I think it was, you know, apart from one lapse, we've done an excellent job again today, and that leads us into the final again for the 4th year in a row.
Is it different to beat your rival in Cavalry to make it to the final? Is this a win that just feels different?
No, I think they asked me even last week, who would you rather play in what game? And quite frankly, I don't care. You know, it's going to the finals, going to the final. If it was Barcelona today or Cavalry, doesn't make a difference to me. It's what's the roadmap to get there. We've gotten there, and we're giving ourselves a chance to go after another trophy, and that's the least you can ask for in a season, at least for our club here at Forge FC.
Well, you're heading to Ottawa, that's for sure. Bobby, congratulations on the win. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, everyone.
I mean, this is pretty spectacular. 4 years the Canadian Premier League has been in existence. All 4 years Forge has been in it. And we also know what their schedule has been like in a couple of years as well, being in CONCACAF League and then qualifying for CONCACAF Champions League. So it hasn't been easy, but they managed to get the job done to at least get here. Last year, they lost to Pacific. Can they get a little redemption and capture their third North Star Shield? October 30th at TD Place. That is when this final will go down against Atletico Ottawa. We have more that we're going to dissect here as Forge defeats Cavalry and they move on to face Atletico Ottawa. Both sides with incredible stories as Forge will look to become the first to have 3 titles, whereas Atletico Ottawa is the regular season winner looking to add the first title to their trophy case.
Who's this game for? For those just making their start? Or those with a whole city on their back? For those who are always game? Or those who are pioneers? For those who are chasing glory? Or is it for all of us? Volkswagen.
We call it the beautiful game, where artistry leaves you in awe, mixed with emotion that grips the soul. We are witness to beautiful goals, where unbelievable cannot begin to describe what we just saw. It is where pride comes to life on the pitch. Respect has been earned. This is where one game is found on one soccer.
We created Carlsberg 0-0 because even the best things can be better with alcohol-free beer. Clean one-handed backhand is better. Balancing stuff is better. Whatever this is better. We created Carlsberg. Skipping your own ad is better. Parking in space, better. So, can the best alcohol-free beer make good things better? Probably.
We're used to labels. Apologetic. Sweet. Pushovers.
1, 2, 3, bang!
But screw labels. No more being polite. No more sugarcoating. Because we're labelless and limitless. Oat Canada, the official plant protein partner of Canada Soccer.
Elation for Forge here today as they have booked their ticket to the CPL final. They will face Atletico Ottawa on October 30th. As you take a look at the full-time stats, David Choinière, Rubens Passias scoring the goals. And yes, Joe Mason gets the goal for Cavalry, but it's too little too late. Once again, another crushing defeat for Tommy Wheeldon Jr.
I thought our defensive shape first half, very good. Didn't really register too many chances, and we were going to be patient when we had our moments. And then going into the half-time, you got one way of looking at things, and the 2 sendings off changed that. We had a game plan coming out in the second half, and yeah, it just unfortunately they struck first, and then when they struck right afterwards with the PK, it then gave us a bit of a mountain to climb. But credit to the lads, we made a game of it near the end, and yeah, made it interesting.
That penalty was very controversial in the way it was taken. Do you think that there should have been a better look at it overall?
Listen, we haven't got VAR in this league because I think there'd have been a lot of things changed in this game if we'd have had VAR.
Thank you.
We'll now go to Zoom. First one's going to go to Michael. Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, Tommy. I know you're absolutely gutted after that. I was going to ask this as my second one, but I'll ask you as the first because you just touched on it there. But 4 seasons in, surely with stuff that we've seen this year, VAR has to come into this league.
Yeah, I think it's disgusting that we're sat here talking about decisions and not the players, because it doesn't do the players justice.
That's fair enough. I mean, if you look back over these 2 legs, where do you feel, aside from refereeing decisions, that your team just fell short tonight? Up front, I mean, you seem to fall out of the game a little bit in the first half, and in the second half, after David sending off, it felt almost that you were just keen to maybe get to penalties by that stage.
No, it wasn't that. We needed to be a bit more progressive with the ball. And we were looking at making changes before the penalty about, bringing on Roberto Alarcon, bringing on Charlie, bringing on Mickey Cantave, bringing on Maya Bevan. And it all happened so quickly. So, if there's anything I can reflect on is maybe I should have made those decisions a little bit earlier. It couldn't stick. We couldn't get it up to Joe or Ali and then make an attack and build an attack from there. So that's something we can be better on. I love the way we played for the last 20 minutes, and I wish we'd have come out like that second half. But it wasn't, coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Meyer Bevan, my correction, he scored the goal. He subbed in for Joe Mason. But here's a look. We've been saying it, the close but no cigar for Cavalry. So, of course, what an incredible 2019 season, the inaugural year, where they won at that time both the spring and fall titles, only to fall short in the ultimate title. It was a 2-leg affair at that point against Forge. Then in the bubble, in the group stage, they needed an all-important win against Forge to go to the final. They don't get it, and then last year lose in the semifinal to Pacific, and then this year in the semifinal to Forge. So it's not just heartbreaking, I think, for Cavalry, but it is because it also comes at the hands, it seems, to Forge all the time.
That's their rivals. I mean, if I was to ask Tommy a question, I think if he's being reflective, is looking at why Norman was playing left back in the first place. I mean, we were asking ourselves that question in the studio. I mean, not placing any blame, but I just feel as if at best he's a center back and he maybe got caught out playing left back. It's just a question personally that I'd love to ask him, because I feel like if there was an error in today, it was probably putting him at left back.
We also talked about his substitutions, and again, I always go back to Bev Priestman. We had her on the show, and heading into the Olympics and winning gold, she said, I had the conversation where I wanted to be the best coach with substitutions, because that is where you really control a game as well as a coach. You come up with your tactics, you come up with your starting 11, but then you are the chess master throughout the game. He just said there, Gareth, maybe he wishes he made some substitutions a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I mean, he was asked everything but the referee. Like, VAR came up, and it's going to be the talking point. But to me, the calls that weren't made in this game don't come down to VAR. It comes down to refereeing competence. Just a referee's ability, not only to make the right call, but just feel out the game in the right way, understand the way that it's being played. That's why I always advocate for more former players to actually get into refereeing, because I think they can make a difference. Like, the sending off of David Norman in this game was the game changer. Position or not, like, he was out of bounds at the time. So that's what changed the game. We're going to go through the highlights.
Let's
We're going to walk
start now. Why don't we talk?
And it's just easier to use that with context, because even if it did go to VAR, I'm not sure if it reverses it. It was the initial call that was wrong in the first.
Begin with Kyle Becker, though. Let's just go chronological order. Or do you want to go?
This is the Norman one.
Norman.
The first one. No complaints here. This is a yellow card. Right?
Yeah.
We're all on the same page?
For sure. Hands down, that's a yellow card.
No issues there. That gets him the first yellow, and then it's the second one that you have difficulty with. Like, I don't even want to criticize the referees anymore, because I feel sympathy for them. Like, the standard of refereeing in this league all season long hasn't been up to the required level, in my opinion. I think that's the opinion of a lot of people around the league. It's, when I talk to coaches and general managers and so on and so forth, it's constantly a topic of conversation. VAR will be a topic of conversation as well to try and correct that. And we see here, a game-changing moment where David Norman appears to be kind of, anticipating contact and protecting himself. Yeah, there's a little push, but in a semi-final, to give someone a second yellow card for that and a sending off is very, very difficult to take.
The question is that enough to be a second yellow?
No.
Is that little hop, push off, not really trying to be violent, is that enough to get a second yellow? The answer is no. Changes the whole format, the whole atmosphere of the game.
Well, and I think that's what we're discussing when you say having to read the room. The first one is such an obvious yellow. You wrap your hand around another player. You prevent him from, scoring a goal or getting at least a shot. You cannot do that. But the second one is that's what's up for question and what's up for debate, because as a ref, you've just sent off Kyle Becker. You believe it was a make-up call.
Well, I believe that it influenced the sending off of David Norman. Yeah, I mean, we could take a look at the sending off of Kyle Becker. There'll be people that believe that he shouldn't have been sent off, including his head coach, Bobby Smyrniotis. He just said that. We've seen this before. It's dangerous. It's a high foot. It's sloppy. Yes, there's no intent, but the impact was there. I actually think he got this right. But it drew a reaction from Forge, the team, the manager, the crowd. Look, high boot to the face.
It's the red cards. It's the red cards.
So, am I the only one that believes that the call minutes later, moments after, on David Norman Jr. had something to do with that? I don't think that Norman Jr. is sent off if Kyle Becker isn't sent off moments before.
Agreed.
Not when you see how high the bar had been set for yellows earlier in the game. It was the complete opposite.
All right, but here's the thing, and of course that's part of the game, because I don't necessarily agree when people say, well, it's not part. No, it is part of the game. It was part of what created, a bit of the dynamic of the game. But at the end of the day, Forge found a way to score more goals than Cavalry did. And Choinière, as we take a look at his 69th minute goal, Ollie, this is a goal that just set the place on fire.
Yeah, the two wide players, like I said, for Forge were the best players in the game for me. They're the two difference makers. We were waiting to see if that attack would come to life, and it did. They delivered when it mattered most. I thought, Jordan's right. I thought even before the bookings, Choinière was giving Norman no end of problems down that Forge right-hand side. Borges, I thought, absolutely ran the game. I thought he was absolutely superb. Maybe Marco Carducci's going to look at that and think I could have got a stronger hand. It's a very, very well-struck finish. But those were the two players who ultimately, for me, were the difference on the day.
Jabraport got the assist for the sending off of Norman, and he gets the assist there. That's a great slip ball in Choinière. That's a textbook finish. Hit it low. That's the most difficult spot for the goalkeeper to make the save. Carducci was a little bit too close to that near side post. But still, take nothing away from the quality of that goal. Forge were the better side, 10v10. More skillful players. They took advantage of the space that was created.
I'm curious to see what the week was like for Forge, because they came out a totally different team. They look like the old Forge. They look like the Forge that is frightening going forward, that will punish you. I honestly, hats off to Bobby for whatever he did this week, because last week they looked lackluster. They didn't look like they had a clear identity, how they wanted to play going forward. But this week, threatening. There are so many players, so many moving parts that you had to have a hold of, and it was just too much for Cavalry. They could talk about yellow cards, they could talk about red cards, but they're frightening going forward. Forge, if they play like that in the finals, that's even a handful for an Ottawa who loves to sit back and loves to defend.
75th minute, they go up 2-0. Woobens Passius ends up getting the penalty kick. We saw that already in the changemaker moment of the match when he was taken down. Again, right call there by the ref. But then Cavalry do make a game of it. 78th minute, Meyer Bevan scores the goal, and we thought, okay, here we go. I mean, this could be something here that, Cavalry can tie it up, and we're going to end up going to penalty kicks, because in the pregame, all of you said it was definitely going to PKs. It looked like your prediction was about to come true, Jordan.
Just cross my fingers.
But it just kind of fell short for them. Too little, too late.
It did fall short, but this maybe goes to Ollie's point, is that...
What's this defending by Rama? What is that?
It's the look back as well. It's just like you just got done, and then you kind of he was on holiday for a little bit.
Just too little, too late. Like Escalante made a push, I thought, down the left-hand side late on, and caused some problems, but just didn't come early enough for Cavalry.
Wheeldon Jr. will be upset by what happened right after that goal as well. It's a 2-1 game. You're back into it. And Rama, who just didn't even bother making a challenge on that goal, came through and took out a Cavalry player. Looked like a scissor challenge for me. Looked like enough to be sent off. He wasn't. I think that's going to be the other moment of the match that's going to bother Tommy Wheeldon Jr. It happened right in front of the bench, and he immediately went to the fourth official. If you're playing 10v9 with the momentum after scoring that goal, 6 minutes of time added on, 17, 18 minutes, you're feeling pretty good about yourself if you're Cavalry with that last push. Let's take a look. And maybe I'm the only one that feels like this is worthy of a sending off. Oh no, this was a kick out. This is not the challenge.
good.
He was already on a yellow card, a little bit of a kick out. I don't really care about this, but there was a scissor challenge where he came through, took out a player right after Charlie Trafford came through. There was a melee. Trafford and Rama came head-to-head. I thought it was worthy of a red card, and he wasn't sent off. And I think if you ask Tommy Wheeldon after, he'll agree with that sentiment. So,
but I don't want to dismiss again a lot of these calls. I think even though we still have gripes to pick with VAR, there is a lot of benefit to having VAR. It also costs money to bring VAR into a league, and this is also a very new league. But at the end of the day, does it not just boil down to Forge finds a way to get it done? Cavalry did not get it done here today.
That could be the headline, for sure. Different class, different gravy today from Forge. But I have to revisit. I know we just switched. I have to go back and say there needs to be a standard throughout the league. I'm sure if you ask any player, the one thing they would want to change, the one thing that needs to be better, is how games are officiated. Fans would say the same thing. There needs to be a standard. Do I agree that that's a red card? It could be, but again, it's up in the air. We're taking certain rules from the rule book and applying it here and not applying other rules.
It's a very difficult game to referee. I fully acknowledge, especially a game like this.
Because these two teams hate each other. It's going to always be like this.
Difficult. That's why you just need your best officials, the best communicators. On the Norman sending up, it was right in front of the linesman. It was right in front of the assistant. The assistant referee was right there. Whatever it is, we've thrown around ideas before. Some of them we think are silly. I would love a second referee on the field instead of a fourth official, playing separator between two managers. Put them on the field because it's all about angles. It's all about perspective, and sometimes two minds are better than one. I think that in this league, when we're trying a lot of different things, under 21 minutes, things to develop, I think it would help out the referees as well. I don't like coming on post-match shows and having to talk about the referees. I agree with Tommy. I wish we were talking about the players and how well Forge played. It wasn't just Chouanier and Borges. I thought they played sensational football today. And that's the thing, coming out of this, there'll be more talk about the refereeing, and rightfully so, than the actual play on the field. And that is a shame.
Well, that's what I will say is I think as much as we will talk about the refereeing and, Cavalry were wronged by it, I think, today, I think it would be a big mistake for Cavalry to come out of this game feeling like the only thing that went wrong today was the refereeing.
Right. And that's the point
Going
I'm
into the off-season,
they
have to understand as well that 11v11, they were getting hammered in that first half. And that's got to be the takeaway. As much as it's easy and it's so frustrating to get done by officiating like that, you have to be able to see through it and see your performance in an honest way.
Let's say at 2-1, do any of us feel that Cavalry had enough to get back in it?
If Ramo was sent off, yes.
If they're down to 9 men.
It was really, I'm glad you brought that up because it was really interesting that Bobby Smyrniotis brought on all defenders.
For sure.
He was not playing for penalties. All his penalties, Borges comes off, his penalty takers come off. That was about preservation.
100%.
Tristan Henry made it interesting at one point. Cavalry knocked on their door a couple times, but the answer was 10v10. No, Forge were the superiors.
And you look at him at the end, Bobby Smyrniotis, relieved. He can look cool, calm, and collected in the post-game interviews, relieved, because he knows that in some way, shape, or form, he did dodge a bullet tonight.
Well, bittersweet here. Our All-State save of the match does go to Carducci, but of course he's going to look back at this game himself and look at, the first goal in particular. Chouanier, obviously penalty kick. That's always a 50-50. Usually, actually that's a lie. Usually goes the way of the shooter. But either way, he does make a save here, and we really thought we were going to go to penalties between these two teams just with the way that they were playing. So All-State save of the match going to Marco Carducci. By the way, I know we've said this, but it's worth kind of hammering home a little bit more. No Kyle Becker in the final. How much does that change the complexion of Forge?
Yeah, it's a massive loss, obviously. He's their reference point, the one who runs the team. I think it's going to mean a really, really big role for Tristan Borges. He's the one, for me, who can also do that. As much as he's dangerous in the final thirds, he can control the game as well. They're going to need him to be just as good as he was today.
Thankfully, they have an excellent central midfield player who happens to be playing center back all season, is one of the final 3 nominees for Defender of the Year in Alexander Ashinoti-Janssen. He's going to push up into midfield alongside Hujavrapor, Sissoko. I think they'll be fine, but it's about breaking down Ottawa's back line. They frustrated Forge at times. I know they came away with a 4-0 victory, but Becker scored what looked to be a goal, crossed the line, wasn't given in a goalless draw, that TD place. That's where you're going to miss Kyle, the experience and the ability to break down the back line and set pieces. Yeah. I mean, Ottawa wasn't very good at set pieces earlier today.
No, but they were second worst.
Ouch.
You couldn't let me live, Andy.
I'm from the York region area. This is just me teasing Jordan as a friend more than anything.
Blaming you.
Oh, man.
Whoa,
I think we're running out of time here, guys, and we gotta save this for another day. But I mean, are we calling Forge a dynasty? When you take a look at all 4 years here, twice they've won it. Are you calling them a dynasty before the possibility of winning their third?
I'm calling them a dynasty.
Yes.
I think they're still the team to beat. I think if you ask any CPL player who they get most excited to play, who they're hyped up to play, it's definitely Forge. They have the most ballers. They have a plethora of options going forward. They're definitely the team to beat. The best team this season, even though they play a bit of a mundane style, is definitely Ottawa. But if you're looking at on paper, squad, all the players that are fresh and ready to play, it's got to be Forge.
Yeah, it's an empire that Bobby's built there. Best youth development in Canada, best recruitment in the Canadian Premier League. They play the best football. They've had the most success. It's a dynasty by any definition.
Some would call it the evil empire. How do you get all these great players? Like, share the wealth, spread it out across the league. Look, they're going into a game that might look a whole lot like last year's final. Pacific soaked up the pressure, just took one goal. Forge couldn't finish their lunch that day.
That's what it's going to be.
It's going to look like
it's no might. That'll be it.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's their ability to go try to break down Atletico Ottawa. Yeah. Hopefully Ottawa gets a big home crowd. I'm sure there's going to be Forge supporters traveling inter-province for the weekend. It's going to be a great atmosphere. How's Ottawa going to deal with it? And Forge has looked frustrated at times when they haven't been able to break down Atletico Ottawa. They have to learn from their experience and maintain their focus. Should be a really captivating final.
Well, in the earlier game, when we did have Atletico Ottawa and Pacific, we showed Atletico run at home their last 5 games where they went undefeated, and one of that included a 0-0 draw against Forge. Clearly, I mean, you would say, well, it's easy against Forge because their offense dried up near the end of the season, but knowing and seeing what we just saw with Forge, that was still a monumental task for Ottawa, and they managed to keep them scoreless in that game.
Huh? See you next weekend.
I'm so excited. This is the finals we wanted.
Forge, your final, and it'll be right here on One Soccer. We will finally find out in 1 week's time who will be the champion of the 2022 CPL season.
That voice in our heads that urges you forward.
Bueno, dale, vamos.
Fuel it.
A new era for Canadians.